Good morning, Aaron here. I want to talk a little about this analogy of brains and cars that I've heard. Midkiller brought it up, Veritas brought it up a while back, and I think it comes from J.P. Moreland. And it's a response to a question asked, but why does brain damage cause character impairment? And the analogy goes like this. The substance will say, well, we should expect that if a car is to take damage, that the driver of the car will not be able to drive the car to its fullest capacity. And the analogy is that the driver is like the mind and the body is like the car. And that, yeah, so that if the car takes damage, we're going to expect it not to operate at 100%. We're not going to expect the exact same operation it had before. Now, this analogy doesn't really work. It does explain some things. It explains why if somebody has a stroke, they become paralyzed on the left side of their body. We see this a lot. But it doesn't explain why people undergo fundamental changes of character after having brain damage. The classic example is Phineas Gage, who had a railroad spike go straight up through his head, take out a whole chunk of his brain, and he went from being sort of a nice, funny, upstanding guy to being a sort of like slow-witted, crude, crass, sort of mean character. Fundamental change in who he was. He went from being one person to being a totally different just by having brain damage. And this is the problem that we're really looking for the answer for, and this car analogy just does not solve this problem at all. If my Honda Civic gets into a car accident, I don't expect that it's going to change into a Mazda Miata or a Chevy Corvette or something like that. I expect that it's going to be a Honda Civic that doesn't drive as well, or doesn't drive at all, maybe. And there's lots of other examples of people, having brain damage and no longer being the same person they were prior to the brain damage. One example I heard, Michael Payton was talking about this on Blog TV a while back. There was a guy who had a tumor, right? And before he had the tumor, he was just a normal guy. After having the tumor, he wanted to have sex with children really bad. He became a pedophile because of the tumor. After having the tumor removed, his pedophilia went away. There's also examples of people who have had brain damage and gone from being sort of, nice family guys to compulsive gamblers and compulsive womanizers and compulsive liars, right? I mean, little changes to the brain can fundamentally change our character. And this is not something we should see if our mind is something separate from our body. There's no reason that damage to the brain should have any effect on the character of the person. In the same respect that there's no reason that damage to a car is going to change what type of car it is. So this is an analogy that I think does not work at all. It doesn't solve the actual question that we're asking here, is why do people undergo fundamental changes in character upon receiving brain damage? And I mean, that's obviously, they don't always receive that. It doesn't always happen that way, but it happens enough that we've had plenty of documented cases of it, and it's a problem for dualism. So I'm curious what defenders of this argument think. I'm curious what you think. I'm curious what everybody thinks. So let me know. Thanks for watching.